how many of you feel that you meet people, or maybe you're one of those people, and you walk into the room and you just draw people to you. You're like, or that's that person who just has that magnetism about them. You can't put your finger on it, but you're like, man, if they would join me in my business, I would, we'd just crush it together. Have you ever met people like that? And have you ever met people that after you've been with them for a few seconds, you feel like you need to have a shower because they're just so icky in every way? And this is my husband, who's at the back of the room, and he actually looked like that when we met, because we had to work in an undercover project together. Like I said, he'd already been in the drug unit for, I think, about 7 years at that point, and I was newer in the unit. So as I mentioned, they tell us, okay, you're going to move 4.5 hours away from where you live, you're moving in with this guy, and you're going to pretend to be common law spouses, and you're going to buy drugs from all these people in this town, and this is how it's going to work. And I'm thinking, I'm moving in with this guy I've never met. So we live in this apartment. We lived together for 10 months. And when I tell the story, I say, it was romantic, and we're living together, and we're, this common goal of justice. And when Kevin tells the story, it's like we were undercover and then we went under the covers, and he does the whole thing, right? And, don't laugh at that story. You're really just reinforcing bad behavior on his part. I had been working uniform for just over 3 years. So I was a keener, super keener. And I had all of those mannerisms of a police officer. And then I'm taken and put into an undercover unit where the last thing you want to do is remotely resemble a police officer, because you're living in different towns, different names, doing all these different things. So you have to be very much aware of your body language, except at the time I didn't know that that's what was happening. You go for training and you learn things, and you learn how to build rapport, you learn what to look for, but they don't actually call it that. And then when you go to law school, they don't talk a lot about how to build rapport. Are lawyers known for their great rapport building skills? No. They're not. Nobody, there's jokes about blondes and lawyers, and and I've heard them. I've heard most of them. So I had to learn, when I started working undercover, how to change my body language, how to change the mannerisms. Or when we were interviewing suspects, so I had a guy come in to interview about a sex assault involving his daughter. And, he was very open when he came in because he was feeling super confident. Like, who's going to believe this 12-year-old kid? And I'm this big deal, and she's nobody. And so I'm interviewing him, and he starts out very open. He actually starts out by sitting with his legs sort of open, right? That dominant posture of exposing everything. Trying to show me, Miss Little Constable, little 20-something-year-old cop, I don't have anything. And the more I questioned and revealed a little bit more to him as to where this was going to be going, his body language ended up like that. So he had a wall between the two of us. And it wasn't what he said that really dialed it up for me that I had the right person. It was his body language. And that's so often what we're looking for when we're communicating with people. Now this guy, I couldn't find a more confident looking dude in the iStock videos than this guy. Like, what's he saying? He's like, I got everything you need and more. So I was like, this is my guy. If I were to come out, I'm just trying to see, because I wanted to come down and just connect with a few more people and see what's going on, and check out a little bit more body language. Now nobody's doing that, but I've seen, in the chairs, or have you been at your conferences where there are people sort of taking up a lot of space? Yeah, okay, they're confident, they're feeling it, they are. Now, does that build rapport with you, or does that make you irritated like the guy who took up 2 parking spots? Yeah. So there's one thing about being comfortable and confident, and it depends on the context and where you're at. And there's another thing about, just letting it all hang out there. Sometimes expressing confidence is important in our business. And even doing some things before we go to meet with someone If we can build up our inner confidence, that's a huge deal, right? Just so you can see my feet a little bit better. When you're standing for confidence and your feet are about 6 inches or more apart, confident. It shows stability, right? It's harder to tip over when your feet are like this, unless you're in stupid shoes. So feet apart, hands behind the back, uber confident, still very much a rapport builder. All of the vulnerable areas out there on display, pointed toward the person. So you have that going. When you have your feet totally tight together, less stable, bit more insecure. So remember, the feet tell the biggest story, right? That's where we want to be. We want to make sure that our feet are planted. And this last one, uber confident. Amy Cuddy actually did a TED Talk. If you haven't seen Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on confidence and the power pose, huge. Again, not a ginormous rapport builder because, you know, if I walked in, hey, I want to tell you about these products in my business, you know. Probably not closing the deal, maybe not making a friend, but if I'm going to get on the phone or get on a Zoom call or a conference call, or I'm going to go meet someone and I've got a few seconds beforehand, and I don't have to say anything, no one has to be around, and I stand like that, my confidence goes up. So or if you're on the phone and you're having a call to stand like that, huge. So I just wanted to leave a couple of things about detecting deception. And I want to stress that it's not about trying to find the lies. You're not out trying to find all the liars, like all those people tell you they're going to rock and roll business and that they're going to, you know, just crush every record that's ever happened. And if you had $1 for every time you've been told that, you wouldn't even need to be here. But I'm talking about detecting the truth, essentially, looking for the truth. And that happens when we have a baseline. So when you first meet someone, getting to know them a little bit with some easy questions, and Lisa did some great questions this morning, but it can be even about the weather, how spectacular those mountains look. Just finding out how they hold themselves, how they carry themselves, what their tone is, will give you that baseline so that when they deviate from the baseline, you'll recognize it. The next are the pacifiers, and that's the rubbing, the stroking, the tugging of the ear, the wringing of the hands, all of those things. If you see that someone is not doing that when you begin the presentation and they start doing that through, there's something you've said or done or communicated with your nonverbals that's upset them. So watch for those things, and also be cognizant of it in yourself. When you're, you know, those people who have the leg shaky things all the time, or they're always doing something, it makes people aware that there's something that's not quite right. That you may be saying the right things, but how you're feeling is different. The eyes, covering the eyes, those studies with the blind children were remarkable, because when we're eye blocking or we're doing that Clint Eastwood far stare from the spaghetti westerns, you know, all of those things, not building rapport, not expressing confidence, definitely adding to a level of suspicion and deception. So our eyes are huge when it comes to what people are looking for. Now, there's all those things about looking up to the left and looking up to the right, looking down, that's a huge different thing that mostly isn't true. And there's a whole other thing on micro expressions, but for now, just be very aware of where people are looking and if they're covering up their eyes when they're speaking with you. And the exits I touched on briefly. When you're talking with someone, if their belly button or their toes start pointing in another direction, that's where they want to be. So that's important to watch for as well. And this one is a really easy one, is the timing. So when we were watching Ben, and he invited Ariana up onto the stage to tell her how grateful he was, I was so hyper aware of his body language because it was remarkable. When he put his hands to his heart and started speaking with her, he did that before the words came out. That means it's genuine. If you see politicians get coached on how to have correct body language, and when you'll know when they're lying because you've seen it on all the politicians do this. There's not just one, but they'll say something, and then their body language will react. Well, I did not have relations with that woman, and then it's like, you know, a shoulder goes up or something. So there's a whole thing around that. But when the body movement, when the gesture happens before the words, more likely to be the truth. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for everything you've done here. Congratulations on your success, because you wouldn't be in this room without it. And a huge, huge thank you to Ariana for putting this remarkable event together.